Unai Emery, after what we saw at the weekend with Aston Villa losing at home at Villa Park to Everton by 1-0 what does this sound like to you? Defeatist or a realist? Post-match, Unai Emery gave something of a bizarre interview to Sky Sports, suggesting their chances of European qualification were now in serious jeopardy.
We are still being not contender to be in the top 5. We are now, but we are still not being contender.
What does it take then to be that, in your opinion?
Because there are another teams with more potential than us.
Why do you think that? Thank you very much, Unai. Thank you.
Okay.
So we're still waiting.
Did we lose the sound on that answer?
Exactly. For those who weren't watching it on YouTube, but you certainly heard it there, Emery just stared at the interviewer and gave no response
We know what he means.
Why
Budgets.
do you think that?
Budgets. He can't buy players. He couldn't even buy Conor Gallagher.
They're 9 points clear of Chelsea, who are 6th.
But look at the teams that are coming up behind them. Look at the budgets they've got. Look at the resources they've got. Look at the spend pattern of these clubs. His point is, and it's not against his ownership model, probably, because he knows his ownership model of being supportive. It's against the governance of the game. Aston Villa are going to struggle as this season goes on, because clearly they felt they needed resources in the window. They aren't able to get it. He feels he needs to be supplemented. As the season goes longer, it goes deeper, the clubs with the bigger squads are going to come to the fore, irrespective of whether we think they're good enough or not. And I think he's right to say that Villa, despite the fact that people will see it as perhaps him setting the scene for some sort of defeatist outlook, there is an element of reality to it. He's frustrated, he's exasperated. He can't sign players. He spent no money in the August transfer window. Last year, he could only take loan signings. He took Rashford on loan and Asensio, was it? On loan as well. Couldn't take any of those players on full-time contracts because he can't do that. He can't do the same thing now. They've had to do a PSR deal with UEFA in the summer, which Stefan Borson explained to us how that worked. So the reality of it is he's sitting there with a club that's punching and looking like it can achieve something, and the governance of the game is saying that door's closed. It was open for Chelsea. It was open for Man City. The historic clubs, the legacy clubs like Liverpool and Arsenal and Manchester United, they've got their turnovers at high levels. You can carry on, but Aston Villa and Newcastle, no. You can't do that. You can't compete with the big boys because our governance of the game now suggests that PSR or whatever the terminology is at the moment in time prohibits you from doing it. That's his frustration.
So why does he suddenly tell us it's a problem now after 22 games? Didn't seem to be a problem for the first.
He hasn't said anything. Hang on.
A month ago they were title contenders.
No, not in his mouth they weren't. And by the way, the same scenario was that you lot, other people like you as well, sitting at the beginning of the season and say, "Whoa, look at Emery, he's in banging trouble after the first 4 or 5 games. Can't score a goal in a terrible condition. Looks like he's going to have his problems. Recovers himself. Now all of a sudden he's a title contender. He never said he was a title contender. The uninformed said he was a title contender. He never made any observations about that at all, did he, Stu?
No, he didn't say a word. To be fair, I've covered Villa over the last probably 6 weeks on about 4 occasions, both games against Arsenal. And the Arsenal game was interesting, away at the Emirates. He's ended up, Arsenal bought Madueke on and the like, international, serious players, and Villa bought 3 young kids on. I think he'd done it and bought off Rodgers and he bought off Watkins, I think, and McGinn. And to send a statement out there that we literally can't compete against what's in front of us at the moment. He's done a brilliant job to get Villa where they are. Yeah. When he makes statements like that, he's not doing it to take the pressure off for any other reason. I think he's being honest. I totally agree with you. He's being honest. His assessment of can they maintain this. Rodgers has been arguably the best player in the Premier League, arguably, up to now. You can't sustain that for a whole season near enough, so he'll drop off. If Tielemans drops off, he's playing with Watkins, who's not firing at the moment. I just think they've sold Marlon, if I'm not mistaken. Has he gone?
He's gone.
So
he's gone to Roma.
I mean, he's punching so above their weight. It's incredible.
So who's going to unseat them?
Chelsea. If you look at the way Man United played on the weekend, I mean, that's the best I've seen Man United play in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years.
You wrote off the top 4 chances last week.
Well, I don't think Man United will finish inside the top 4. But
Liverpool, totally indifferent.
But they might finish 5th or 6th. I've always said at the beginning of this season that Manchester United will finish 5th or 6th. That's what I said at the beginning of the season. They'll be in the top 6. So Man United are now 5th. Chelsea have got a squad. They're winning games. They've got a decent squad of young players that Rosinha can capitalise on. And if they want to spend some money in the January transfer window, they'll spend it.
But Simon,
if Man United want to spend some money, they'll probably spend it.
Villa are joint second this morning with Manchester City on 43 points, behind Arsenal, who are on 50. They're 9 points clear, as I say, of Chelsea, who are 6. If they let that slip now, I'm sorry, but PSR is not an excuse.
If you haven't got a strong enough squad to compete against the squads that are deeper than yours when it gets into the business end of the season is not September. and it's not October, and it's not November. The business end of the season is March.
We get that.
April. So when you go into that time of the year and you're carrying a squad that's played in Europe, that's played in competitions, that's got a lot of miles on the clock, and you're playing against other teams that haven't, and they've also got deeper squads, you're going to find that there might be some ramifications. If you're really, really lucky, if he's really lucky, he keeps Morgan Rogers fit all season and can play him in every single game. But if he's not lucky and all of a sudden those players come out of commission, what does he do then? I'm not getting in the mood
This is realism, is it, from Emery, as opposed to defeatism?
I think he's probably exasperated about it.
But he wouldn't be saying that, he wouldn't be giving off this exasperated air had they won 1-0 as opposed to losing 1-0.
Of course not. He's frustrated about the game. What do you want him to do?
Yeah.
What do you expect him to do?
I don't want him to do anything, particularly. But we're not top 5 contenders. You're joint second.
Well,
You've been there all season.
So
It's up to you.
So there's 22 games. There's 16
But
more
now
games.
it's PSR's fault.
Well, it's always been PSR's fault. He couldn't buy any players in the summer. So do you expect? So why have Nottingham Forest dropped off a cliff? They played so brilliantly last year because all their players were working at such a level. Chris Woods couldn't miss. He couldn't miss the
But
play.
they sacked the manager.
But the way that the Forest played, and they started the season poorly under him because the squad needed to be refreshed and supplemented. You can't have players operating at 98% of their ability all the time. It doesn't work that way, does it, Stu?
Certainly don't. And when you consider, you take Forest for an example, they played in a style of play that suited everybody, and certain individuals spiked with their form.
Yeah.
You know, Woods not played like that ever in his career.
yeah.
Ever.
As I mentioned, going into the last break, post-match, Unai Emery gave something of a bizarre interview, certainly the end of it was, to a Sky Sports reporter, suggesting their chances of European qualification were now in serious jeopardy.
We are still being not contender to be in the top 5. We are now, but we are still not being contender.
What does it take then to be that, in your opinion?
Because there are another teams with more potential than us.
Why do you think that? Thank you very much, Unai. Thank you.
Okay.
He should have answered that. There's nothing controversial about him saying, because they've got more money and they don't have the same challenges that the governance of the game has put upon us. There's nothing controversial. It wouldn't offend his owners. He wouldn't be calling out his hierarchy, because that's not him turning around and saying that ultimately they've got loads of money and not choosing to spend it. That's him just being frustrated and exasperated with the situation. You know, he's a balanced manager. Like all managers, they are temperamental at times. It's a unique profession. Sometimes it has to be priced into the thinking of people that are listening to it. I don't price it in very often because I think they should know better. I think that's part of their job. That's what they know is coming their way. That's what they get paid the big bucks for. Get on with it and be a bit more mature about it. But in that instance, I think he'd have done better for himself if he'd have explained he wanted to open that can. He didn't need to open it. He didn't need to talk about the idea. They're not contenders to win the league. The reality of them winning the league was shown to them when they went up to Arsenal and got smashed. There was the reality. Aston Villa are doing very well.
Yeah.
The manager is taking them to heights that his coaching and that playing squad are
Yeah.
operating at a very high level, but they ain't contenders to win the league. Now, they should be contenders to be in Europe now because of where they are at this point of the season. But a season, as Stuart will be able to speak to far more articulate than me, is broken down into different parts. And just because you're there after 22 games does not mean that you're going to be there after 38, because there's different types of the parts of the season that have different requirements of the squad and of the manager. And he's going into that phase where he's looking at it going, I know what's coming down the track. I know what's coming my way, and I don't think I've got enough. But what can I do about it? I can't do anything about it because my owners, who we know are proper owners, who we know are prepared to spend $1 or $2,
Yeah.
and have backed that football club and have done good things with it,
Yeah.
can't because they're restricted.
Do you think he should have, just to follow up what Simon said, and then I'll go to the calls, apologies to Gus, Villa fan, I'm coming your way. Do you think he should have said something at the end of that answer? I mean, it looks lame at the end to say nothing, Stuart.
I think he probably should have answered it, but the fact he didn't answer it, we all filled the gaps in anyway. So it didn't overly matter. We knew what he was going to say. We knew what he would have said. You know, I'm up against, my hands are tied a little bit here in regard to all the financial situations that's going on. And, you know, I've watched this team a fair bit over the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And they've been outstanding, but they're all punching above their weight. And when you look at the bench beyond that, it's not as strong as all these other sides, you know, especially Arsenal and Man City and the like, you know. So he's got his hands tied. I don't know whether the frustration going forward will be too much for him, that he can't take this team any further than he is, and what the implications are for him and his job situation going forward. Because he certainly alerted a lot of clubs that There's an outstanding manager there.
Well, he signed a long-term contract, hasn't he? And up until 2 weeks ago, everyone was raving, specifically the Villa fans, because when I talked about Emery going to Man United, boom, there was a pile on from Villa fans, including Gabby, saying he signed a long-term contract. The reason why he works at his football club is because he's head cook and bottle washer. He is everything. He is a manager of the old calibre, which has his fingers in every pie, knows what's going on, and controls it all, which is what Maresco couldn't do and Amorim couldn't do, and that's why it was being used as a comparison. So how does it affect the landscape for him?
Yeah.
He must know the dynamics of the situation.
Well, he knows that his club are joint second at the moment on 43 points, only 7 behind Arsenal. They're 9 clear of Chelsea, who are 6th. The owners are proper owners, as Simon says. Wes Eden's over in America. Nassef Sawira's co-owner of Villa, whose birthday today is 65. Happy birthday to you, Nassef. But just listening to Unai Emery at the end there, and post-match, and also his demeanour, what did you think? Was he being realistic, or was it a sign of defeatism? I wonder what the Villa fan think.